Welcome back to Tools and Track. In this episode, I'm making a wish. I wish I'd bought a fucking built car. It's time to talk about the upper wishbones for the front of the car. This is where you will have some decisions to make. So, there are two common options discussed on the forums for doing the upper wishbones on an MX-5 based low cost. The first one, which a lot of people in the UK use, is BMW tie rods. They look a little bit something like this. Now, just to clarify for anyone who's building a low cost who knows nothing about cars, you shouldn't be. But if you are, a tie rod is what normally attaches the steering rack onto the hub. What we're going to do is use a tie rod to attach the upper part of the hub to a wishbone. There's a bit of contention and a lot of people that might get a wee bit worried about that, shall we say. What you've got to consider though is the forces that are at play. Tie rod, such as this BMW one that we've nominated, is quite simply a link joint that moves this way to this way, and that's the forces that it absorbs. Obviously there'll be a wee bit of articulation required, but fundamentally all it has to do is keep things locked going that way. So why is that a problem if we use it for an upper link to tie the wishbones onto the hubs? Well, think about it, it's not really. The same forces are going to be applied. Namely, the upper wishbone is going to move that way, that way, and that way, and that way. The actual load is taken by the lower wishbone. That's the one that we don't want to deviate from, and if we're retaining this one, which was the MX-5 lower one we did earlier on, it's still going to be fit for task. I'm happy enough to use it. Well, I'll punctuate that. I'm not really, because this suggested model is the BMW one. Now, why do people say use a BMW tie rod? And I'll clarify what that BMW tie rod should be, by the way. E31 8 series. So, why is it a good idea? From here into the hub is what's called a taper shank. Rather than just putting a straight bolt through here, the taper helps it seat better, lock in place, and takes a lot of strain off of the nut on the end. You want to retain this as much as you possibly can. Drilling out the hub will just add a potential failure point, and I don't really want to do that. Not just because this is going to be a bit of a deviation from a normal 1.3 whatever low cost. I want to make sure this is going to take a lot of thumping. That has to be retained. The good thing is that, as I said, fits into the hub. The bad thing is where it attaches onto the car. That's really not a lot of meat. Now, I thought I'll take a wee punt on this and buy one and see how it looks. And now that I've seen it, so there's a plan B. It takes a bit more work though. This is a Ford Transit tie rod. As you can see, it is way meatier than a BMW one. Check out the girth in that bad boy. That, I think, is the joint that I want to use. So, we're now on to cutting out section tube steel, which is going to make up the, is it bushes? No, it's the bushes. Let me show you a completed product. You may have seen this before, with much swearing and frustration. So we need to cut out many of these little things, and when we're doing a repeating process, as we've touched on before, a template and a jig's the way to go. So here's how we're going to go about that. We're going to take one that's correct, this little guy, with the grinder down, push that all the way across so that it's touching the disc, which is basically where the cut's been made. I'm going to clamp that in reasonably tight just to hold it. It looks like a JTB, an alphabetical consonant clamp. And we're going to clamp in this guy. So basically what's going to happen, if you now switch to the other camera please, chef, we're going to have this in place in here. You can see that the tubular steel piece is resting against it, so that's it. The way the cut's correct and the grinder can go up and down. And then we're going to clamp that guy in place, and hopefully that means all of our cuts are going to be the desired size. So what I'm going to just do now is check this is actually 36mm, the piece that I've used, to make sure that we're measuring correctly. And it's not. That was a good one to do, that's 37mm. And now we get to one that Tony cut. And it should be perfect actually, that's good, okay.
Yeah, so again, I didn't quite hear that.
Sorry darling?
I didn't quite hear that bit. You said the one I was, what was that?
It was just said it was shit.
Oh.
Let's give it a haul. Wish me luck. So as discussed, our upper wishbones are going to have collars on them that are going to hold in transit drag links or tie rods, depending on what you want to call them. So I have got this from a common well-known auction site, and what this comes with, a small threaded insert that goes on this side. nice and flush. A longer threaded insert that goes in the other side. That gives you something that looks like this. We're going to weld the two arms onto the sides of this, and then when we get our tie rod, it will go in. And what this will allow us to have, it gives you adjustability. What you will do is unlock, rotate in or out, unlock again. Boom, camber adjust. That was about 30 quid and has saved me a substantial machining bill and a lot of faffing about. This is what the book gives you, both the Haynes and the Big Bible of Bollocks. As you can see, it's somewhat Spartan on measurements. Even some of this I've extrapolated myself. It really just gives you that, and this drop height here. That might seem like it's a bit short, however it is exactly the amount that you need and not to drop more to work out where this needs to go. So these are the two bush carriers that will mount the wishbone to the car, and this tube here is where the track rod then goes in to hold the hub. Now, what we're going to have to do here is add a bit more info so that we can make a jig. To hold all of this together, we'll have to put in these two bits of round bar. These will also need to be fillet cut, so you know, it's a bit in this, you know, it's tricky. So what I'm going to do here is, well, add more info. And this is my solution. Nothing radical here. All I've done is take the inside and the outside measurements of everything where they need to sit and project them out. Why have I done that? What this will do is give me how far apart these need to be from the faces, or how far apart they need to be held in. That's what you need to make a jig. So yes, there's probably no right or wrong way to make a jig, but this is probably not the right way. Or maybe it is, I don't know. Most of the things I've read is like, oh, put blocks of wood out and line it up perfectly, but the geometry in this works. I've just like clamped steel down. I took a notch out of this one so that it locates the front of that ball joint pickup okay. These two are secured down with G-clamps and they're perfectly parallel. It should all work. So the next thing we need to do is get our tubes ready to do the scallop cuts into. That's where it gets interesting. Whenever you need to join two plates of metal together, you need to match the faces very, very well for it to be a good weld. The problem with this is, if you want to weld this onto a flat surface, it's fine. You just run it at the angle with the angle grinder and it's cut, that's it. However, when you join these two together, it's slightly trickier because you've got to meet that curve and it's got to be right. Old school thought would be to just mark this out, kind of rough eyeball it and, you know, keep chiseling away metal until it's correct, but these two need to be perfectly lengthed. So we're going to go with plan B, a website called blocklayer.com. On our first length, we've got to have a 75-degree angle cut. You will see a scallop template for 75 degrees at the right width that this needs to be. And when you put it on, it looks a little bit like this. That, as you'll see, gives you an outline that then shows you the scallop that you need to remove. Not bad, eh? So we have welded up our first arm, which looks a bit like this. I'm pleased to announce that it's still quite warm, which is useful because today is not. As you will see, this is welded quite far away and given us as much space as humanly possible, and there's still going to be a problem. What, I hear you ask, can possibly be a problem on this? Well, these eBay adapters for running the transit drag links don't fit. They will actually line up and drop in almost, But the problem is, these are going to need to be adjustable, as in, you're going to need to get a spanner on the back of that and actually rotate it to adjust the camber on the top. And at the moment, it fouls on this leg quite a bit. I'm going to have to look for a solution to this. And if I'm being honest, at this point in time, I don't even know what that is going to be. Unless I bend this arm to put it in place, which I'm really not keen on because it takes a lot of strength out of tubular steel when you put a bend in it. But who doesn't love a bit of drama in the content? But what this is going to mean is we're probably doing upper wishbones only in this episode, till I work out exactly how to get around this. These are still actually quite useful links before I go like blaspheming against somebody that sells these on eBay, and they may well work if you're not running Mazda MX-5s, because I know that some of the other Caterfields or whatever the hell else will use different geometry, but they don't work with this at all. But they do, they will, everything works. It's just a case of how much welding wire you want to put into it. One upper wishbone done, on and doing what it should. I am so chuffed that that actually slid on and didn't give me any grief. Good to know your bracket measurements are right. So that's going to be us for the episode. Obviously we've got the other side to do, but interesting developments. We are going to probably do that on a live stream. In the coming weeks we're going to start doing a weekend live stream here. Just a bit of chat, get the guys up and just see what we do. 95% of what we film lands on the cutting room floor, so if you want to see that, you know where to find it. Thanks again for watching. Thanks to everyone who's Patreoned. Like I say, there's been a lot of welding, so a lot of gas used. Patreon's been such a great help for building this car. Everyone who supported us, we really appreciate it. Anyone who hasn't, patreon.com/toolsandtrack. Jump on there and help us out and be a part of this build. We get free merch and all that stuff, so it's worth doing. That's it for now, guys. We will see you in the next episode when we start tackling the lower wishbone. Until then, stay safe, guys, and we'll catch you soon. Laters. Rain moving up with possible showers of pain in the arse.
It's actually mirror the 36 mark, which is not unexpected, because potentially where I started cutting on this pipe was an uneven cut from the previous cut. Again, something we can tailor and correct when we're cleaning it all up. So let's just keep going. I'm just going to churn through them. If you really wanted to see this, we would leave it in, but you don't because it's boring. So now we'll vanish, and I'll vanish and we'll reappear maybe over there, and you'll see some really interesting stuff. Goodbye.